understand it for the life of me. If they say that they understand the needs of Canadians, in which they don't, what you'll see, Mr. Speaker, is they're going to vote against Bill C-20, just like they vote against any idea that comes out of the government that's there to be affordable for Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
We'll have to continue this. We'll have to continue this later. The honourable member will have basically 11 minutes and 45 seconds to continue his speech.
Kids are laughing at you.
Yeah, okay, but we have to have order because we're going to statements by members. Déclaration de député.
Statements by members.
Member for Sault Ste. Marie Algoma.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize a remarkable milestone for the Kiwanis Club of Sault Ste. Marie as it celebrates 100 years of awesome service. Since its founding in 1926, the club has embodied the very best of volunteerism, generosity, and community leadership. For a century, its members have dedicated countless hours of improving the lives of children and families through fundraising, literacy initiatives, scholarships, youth leadership programs, and support for local organizations. Whether through the Kiwanis Pancake Breakfast, partnerships with the Thrive Child Development Center, or care packages for vulnerable children, the club's impact has been felt for generations. Its members have shown that the lasting change is built through compassion, inclusion, and service above self. I extend sincere congratulations to all past and present members of the Kiwanis Club of Sault Ste. Marie as it begins its second century of service. I know that will be just as inspiring as the first. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, Italian culture is a rich tapestry of history, art, cuisine, family tradition, and the values of respect for each other. Family is extremely important in the Italian culture.
Right.
My grandfather arrived in Canada in 1950, where he had the opportunity to work and provide a home for his family. I had the privilege of growing up with my nonna, who taught me the beauty of the Italian cuisine, which is enjoyed in my community in King Vaughan and across Canada. Her recipes and teachings of tolerance, compassion, and love will always be treasured. Nonna, sei sempre nel mio cuore. As chair of the Canada-Italy Interparliamentary Group, I am proud to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the Republic of Italy. Let's all reflect on the friendships that Canada and Italy share, and let's continue the traditions. May we celebrate and continue to flourish together. Viva Canada! Viva Italia!
The honourable member for Mont-Saint-Bruno-L'Acadie. Mr. Speaker, today I would like to highlight the achievements of a company from Mont-Saint-Bruno-L'Acadie, namely Zero C. Recently, this innovative company won an award from the South Shore Chamber of Commerce and Industry, demonstrating its dynamism and leadership. Zero C stands out for its commitment to sustainable, forward-thinking solutions. It perfectly embodies Quebec's expertise and the ability of our local businesses to innovate while contributing to a more responsible and high-performing economy. This success stems from the hard work of a passionate team, which is a source of pride for our region. Therefore, I would like to congratulate them, the entire Zero C team, on this well-deserved recognition and wish them every success in the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kenora Kiiwetinoong.
Over 1 year into this Prime Minister's mandate, Mr. Speaker, and Canadians are still waiting for action on the national projects that were promised. Despite Liberal rhetoric, no new pipelines have been approved and major projects continue to be stuck in purgatory, including the Trans-Canada Highway through northwestern Ontario. Improving this vital piece of infrastructure is top of mind for people in our region, whether it be for the safety of travelers, Mr. Speaker, or for our overall economic sovereignty. It's why I've been advocating for this project for nearly 7 years. Wow. Recently, I presented a petition to this House signed by Canadians from every single province, calling on the government to support the improvements to the highway through northwestern Ontario. Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that our national highway holds national interest, and it's time that the Liberals recognized it too. So I stand once again, Mr. Speaker, urging the government to finally make good on their promises and finally get shovels in the ground.
The honourable member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Mr. Speaker, Today, I wish to highlight the excellence, discipline, and determination of the 785th St. Eustache Kiwanis Squadron. On June 6th, during the provincial military drill competition, the 785th Squadron won first place in the Triumph category, earning the title of the best squad in its category. This victory is the result of remarkable work, strong team cohesion, and exemplary commitment from our young cadets. I would like to warmly congratulate the cadets, their instructors, the volunteers, families, and everyone who supports them in their journey. You are a source of pride for Saint Eustache and the entire Rivière des Mille Îles region. Congratulations to the 785th Saint Eustache Kiwanis Squadron for this magnificent achievement.
Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, record high youth unemployment in Canada is a direct result of the Liberal government's reckless immigration policies. By flooding the labour market with temporary foreign workers and residents, this government has created a wage-suppressing crisis. Instead of protecting opportunities for young Canadians, these policies have locked our youth out of the workforce, fueling a devastating job crisis. Ethan Miranda is a bright young man who did everything he was supposed to do. He studied hard, earned excellent grades, and was accepted in one of Canada's top universities in a highly competitive program. He graduated with honours and expected to find employment in his field. After 500 applications, Mr. Speaker, he was forced to accept a minimum wage job, just barely above minimum wage. Now the Liberal government has launched an international campaign recruiting more foreign students to Canada who compete with Ethan and other young Canadians struggling to find work. This Liberal government should stop pandering to lobbyists, Mr. Speaker, and start putting Canadians first. Conservatives will replace the temporary foreign worker program with one that prioritizes Canadian youth and Canadian workers.
The honourable member for Charlottetown.
Mr. Speaker, last week a funeral took place at the Eastlink Centre Hockey Arena for a true Prince Edward Island legend, Forbes Kennedy. Raised in Charlottetown, Forby built an extraordinary career in professional hockey, playing more than 600 games in the NHL with the Chicago Blackhawks, the Detroit Red Wings, the Boston Bruins, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Known for his toughness, determination, and fierce loyalty to his teammates, he earned the respect of players and fans across North America. But beyond the rink, Islanders knew him as someone who never forgot where he came from. Forbes Kennedy represented the grit, humility, and work ethic that Islanders value so deeply. He coached generations of young athletes and remained an important figure in our province's rich hockey and baseball history. I offer sincere condolences to Forbes' family, friends, former teammates, and all those mourning his loss. May his memory continue to inspire both on and off the ice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cowichan Malahat Langford.
Today I rise to honour a man who has spent a lifetime proving that success means nothing unless you share it. Bob Saunders has been called a perennial booster of good things, a title that is well earned. From founding Saunders Subaru to supporting arts, youth, sports, healthcare, veterans, and education across Vancouver Island, Bob has never stopped giving back. I can speak to this personally. As a former Wounded Warriors Canada team runner, I've seen firsthand what Bob's generosity means to those who carried the weight of service long after coming home. Not just dollars, but dignity, hope, and healing. Bob believes in paying it forward that civic-minded people who lead by example inspire the next generation of community leaders. He has lived every word of that, and he has inspired me. Recently, I had the honor of joining Bob and his beloved Norma at a Victoria Shamrock season opener, celebrating 70 years of marriage, 70 years of making our island better. On behalf of Cowichan Malahat Langford and those across Vancouver Island, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Norma. Thank you to the entire Saunders family. Your legacy is written in the lives that you have changed.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Côte-Nord, Kawachimach, Natisanan. Mr. Speaker, if you walk through the Parc des Pionniers in Baie-Comeau, you'll see a 1,150-foot-long serpent winding through it, formed by some 34,000 stones painted by people from all over the world like a fantastical creature emerging from the sea. This immense creature sprang from the imagination of a young boy named Hugo Jobin. Hugo, who at the age of 8 just as leukemia was threatening his childhood, chose to bring his rock snake to life because he decided that he would defeat not only leukemia, but also a Guinness World Record. And 2 years later, Hugo beat cancer and already every possible record of love and solidarity. And with an entire community and, of course, his parents, Melanie and Nicolas, and his little sister. So thank you, Hugo, for showing us all that this act of creation gives us strength even greater than hope. Today, you are 10 years old, and the Bloc Québécois celebrates life with you and soon your future Guinness World Record.
The honourable member for Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I stand today to champion the Dr. Peter Centre, an organization in my riding that integrates housing, healthcare, nutrition, therapeutic and cultural programs to serve the underserved and the vulnerable. The Centre's integrated model has demonstrated positive and measurable results amongst its clients for decades. I have personally witnessed its impact. Reduced dependence on emergency departments, improved health status, fewer overdoses, all of which equal decrease in healthcare costs in the long run. But most important is the hope that these clients get from this program and the sense of belonging and integration into the community. The Dr. Peter Centre has begun to extend this program across Canada. The vulnerable and underserved need our help and support to achieve these outcomes: positive health, social and economic well-being. After all, isn't this what we all came here to do?
The honourable member for Richmond Centre, Marlpole.
Mr. Speaker, 20 years ago, Prime Minister Stephen Harper delivered in this House a historic apology and redress of the Chinese head tax. That was a defining moment in our country's reconciliation. It recognized a historic wrong and affirmed the great contributions of Chinese Canadians to Canada. From the railways that unite our nation to the business, professions, and communities that strengthen it today, Chinese Canadians have shaped our country's success for generations. Today, Chinese Canadians contribute to excel in public service, entrepreneurship, academics, and culture. That's why I've introduced Motion M32, which designates June 22nd as National Chinese Canadian Contributions Day and recognizes June as Chinese Canadian Contribution Month. As we mark this important anniversary, let's honor the resilience, achievements, and legacy of Chinese Canadians and ensure their contributions continue to be recognized for generations to come.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, over the past 3 weeks in Port Moody Coquitlam, I've been truly inspired by remarkable young people. I met students at the Young Leaders Society of BC, their Model UN, the Hannah TV Youth Press Corps, and the Steps Together Foundation Public Speaking Contest. Young people debating human rights and diplomacy, learning journalism, and finding the courage to use their voices. I also had the honor of meeting members of the 754 Phoenix Squadron of the Royal Canadian Air Cadets and hearing the remarkable Port Moody Youth Symphony Orchestra. These opportunities do not happen by accident. They are built by founders, mentors, families, and leaders in every field who pour their hearts into helping young people grow and to lead. This gives me great hope for Canada. Merci beaucoup.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent à Coingrac. Mr. Speaker, sad reality, Canada is in a recession. And while the Liberals refuse to acknowledge this and play with words, these hardships faced by Canadians are very real. 2.2 million Canadians, a third of whom are children, are relying on food banks. Canada has the worst food inflation in the G7. Housing is unaffordable, and young people are losing their dream of home ownership. And the economy isn't getting any better. Productivity is falling. Businesses are investing less for the 5th consecutive negative quarter. And the PBO states that the labour market has weakened and that businesses are postponing their investment plans due to increased uncertainty. Banks are forecasting dismal growth, 0.8% according to Scotiabank and 0.5% according to PMO. That's the reality for Canadians. And yes, Canada is in a recession. 3 out of 4 quarters have been negative since this PM took office. When will we see concrete results for Canadians? The honourable member for Brome-Missisquoi. Mr. Speaker, Today, I would like to highlight an act of generosity that deserves recognition. In my riding of Brome-Missisquoi, the company Remorquage Granby Boissonneau offers free towing for 3-wheeled and 4-wheeled mobility scooters belonging to seniors or people with reduced mobility. Recently, my 94-year-old father's mobility scooter broke down, and for him, this vehicle represents much more than a means of transportation. It's his independence and freedom. And the company came to pick it up at no cost, and I was deeply moved. And my father was very touched by this gesture, which allows older people and seniors on modest incomes to avoid an additional expense and maintain their mobility. At a time when we talk often about major challenges facing our seniors, it's important to recognize these concrete gestures that make a real difference in their daily lives. So thank you, Remorquage Granby Boissonneau, for your generosity and for the example of solidarity it offers our entire community. Thank you.
The honourable member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Canada is falling behind. Under this Liberal Prime Minister, Canada stands alone as the only G20 country in a recession. Families feel it every day. Paychecks don't stretch as far, bills keep piling up, and home ownership is slipping out of reach. Canadians are left asking a simple question: how did we get here? The answer, a decade of Liberal economic failure. The Liberals said this spring they would borrow $65 billion. Yet, the independent budget watchdog says the real number is $72 billion. That's $7 billion more on debt, $7 billion more to be paid by our children and grandchildren. And Liberals, they keep spending like there's no tomorrow, while Canadians are left paying the price today. Higher debt, higher costs, and less opportunity. Canadians deserve better than excuses. They deserve a government that grows the economy instead of growing the debt. It's time to end the reckless spending, restore fiscal responsibility, and get Canada back on track.
Well said.
The honourable member for West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
Mr. Speaker, June is National Indigenous History Month, the time to celebrate the histories, culture, languages, and contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people across Canada. In my riding of West Vancouver Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country, we live on the ancestral and unceded territories of the Squamish, Shishalt, Liwat, and Kwakwa nations. And archaeological evidence from BC shows that Indigenous peoples have lived on these lands for more than 14,000 years, representing one of the longest continuous human histories anywhere in the world. This month, communities across our region are coming together to celebrate Indigenous history and culture. Whether attending CIA Days on the Sunshine Coast, joining National Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations at the Squamish Liwat Cultural Centre, or learning about Indigenous history from a guided Talisay tour in West Vancouver, there are many opportunities to learn from and celebrate the First Peoples of these lands. I encourage all Canadians to take this opportunity to listen, learn, and celebrate the rich Indigenous heritage that continues to shape our communities and our country. Chen Quen Man Tome, Olnam Shalap, Poicho. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
When Canadians pay for the worst recession in the G20, the Prime Minister is asking Canadians to pay $90 billion for a high-speed train that will destroy farms in Quebec without consulting farmers and producers. Indeed, communities throughout Quebec will pay the price without even having any say. Why is the Prime Minister sacrificing regions of Quebec for another Liberal white elephant? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers voted for a Liberal government in the last election. 44 members of Parliament, and in the Liberal platform, for Quebec was the high-speed train because this train will create more than 50,000 jobs, more than 37 billion in GDP, and a more prosperous and more sustainable future.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it only creates jobs for the Liberals' friends. This phantom railway has already 13 vice presidents. They've all received $2.3 million in bonuses without having built a single inch of rail anywhere. And now the Prime Minister wants to expropriate farmers and producers and wants to force Canadians to pay $4,000 per family. Why another boondoggle from the government? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have to be for great projects, nationally speaking. This will be the biggest infrastructure project in Canada's history. It's the time to build Quebec and to build a strong Canada, and we will do so.
Leader of the Opposition.
This Liberal Prime Minister has created the only recession in the G7 and the G20, and today the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcies revealed it's getting worse. An 8% increase in consumer insolvencies, 10% increase in bankruptcies. In the 12 months this Prime Minister has been in office, we have the highest number of insolvencies in a decade and a half. The Liberal Prime Minister created this mess by doubling the deficit, driving up inflation, and grinding growth down. Will he reverse these disastrous Liberal policies before more Canadians go bankrupt?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are in the midst of the biggest transformation in the Canadian economy in decades. We are building a stronger economy, a more resilient economy, a more independent economy, and our plan is taking root, Mr. Speaker. Last week, we just heard that we have created over 88,000 jobs, all full-time, all private sector. This economy is creating jobs at twice the rate of the United States. More Canadians are in work than the Americans, more Canadian women by 7 percentage points. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Oh, he's transforming the economy. He's transformed it into the only recession in the G20. And regretfully, this year, there have been a net loss of 24,000 jobs, meaning we have the second highest unemployment in the G7, a third higher than in the United States. And today, Equifax said Canadian entrepreneurship is on decline, and business payment challenges continue to build as more companies fell behind on their payments. A third fewer small businesses launched in the last 24 months. Mr. Speaker, current businesses are going bankrupt. New ones aren't launching. Will he reverse course before more go bankrupt?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what matters is that people believe in this economy and are moving forward. The Leader of the Opposition doesn't believe in Canada. This is what's happening. More Canadians are in the workforce than the Americans. More Canadian women are in the workforce than the Americans by 7 percentage points. Investment in machinery and equipment by businesses up 10%. The highest level of foreign direct investment in 20 years. A trade surplus just registered. We are building Canada strong.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Just me? Of not believing in Canada, it is my patriotic duty to fight for the people who are suffering as a result of this recession. Once again, he's making the mistake of confusing Canada with the Liberal Party. We are not going to take any lessons on patriotism from a guy who stashes his corporate cash in a tax haven and moves his corporate head office out of this country. We're going to continue to fight for Canadian workers, Canadian consumers, and a strong Canadian.
There was. Didn't hear the question.
Instead of attacking.
We'll go to the next question. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I understand he can't stand up for the miserable economic track record that he has created, the only G7 country in a recession. And instead of attacking other people's patriotism, why doesn't he take responsibility for the damage that he's caused? Equifax reports that the national 60-day delinquency rate for businesses rose 11% year over year in the most recent quarter, escalating costs and higher inflation being the main culprits, the organization reports. We know the Prime Minister managed to put us in the only recession in the G7. Will he reverse these disastrous policies before he drives more people into bankruptcy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. We are growing an economy that's stronger, more resilient, and more independent. The flash GDP estimate for April, 0.4% growth. I'm going to annualize that to help out the Leader of the Opposition. That's 5% growth. In April, a trade surplus just registered. The strongest job growth in the G7 just in this last month, 88,000 jobs, twice the rate of the United States, twice the rate in foreign investment.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is abandoning Quebec culture in the face of tech giants and Donald Trump. First, he scrapped the... I can't quite hear the Honourable Member for Saint-Jean, so if she could take it from the top. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is abandoning Quebec culture in the face of tech giants and Donald Trump. First, he scrapped the digital services tax. That's a loss of $1.4 billion a year in exchange for absolutely nothing. Today, he is ordering the CRTC to cancel every cent of the license fees charged to online streamers such as Netflix or Amazon Prime. Yet the European Union imposes license fees on streamers, and streamers comply without any significant cost increases for their customers. Why is the Prime Minister in such a hurry to throw our culture to the wolves for Donald Trump? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The question they ask is why? Well, the question we should be asking is why has the Bloc always voted against investments in Canadian, French and Quebec culture? In the last budget, more than $760 million were earmarked. We have just proposed $600 million in the Francophone and Canadian cultural sector. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, let us take a recent look at the Prime Minister's record. The Prime Minister is abandoning culture for the exclusive benefit of digital giants such as Netflix or Amazon. The Prime Minister is abandoning the fight against climate change for the exclusive benefit of American oil company shareholders. The Prime Minister is abandoning pesticide controls for the exclusive benefit of agrochemical multinationals. Never has a Prime Minister deregulated so extensively in the service of large foreign corporations, selling out to the highest bidder abroad. Is that his strong Canada? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc is always against great investments in culture, including Francophone and Quebec culture, against the previous budget with new investments in the electricity sector. They voted against the agreement with Quebec last week. $10 billion of investments in all sectors, including health, healthcare and transit. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, the first thing the Prime Minister sacrificed in the trade war of Washington was French language culture. It brings to mind Winston Churchill. In the very midst of the Second World War, he was advised to cut funding for culture. Churchill replied, "If not for culture, then why are we fighting?" Mr. Speaker, what the Prime Minister has sacrificed to Donald Trump is what distinguishes the Quebec nation. It's our culture, in our language. How can he treat the very existence of the Quebec people as a mere bargaining chip? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's rather sad, but it seems that the Bloc Québécois hasn't read the previous budget, because in the last budget, there's more than $750 million for Canadian culture, Quebec culture and Francophone culture, including Téléfilm, the Canada Media Fund, the National Film Board, the Canada Arts Council and Radio-Canada CBC. And we've just added $600 million.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, in addition to being an embarrassment for the Prime Minister that he's the only leader in the G20 to cause a recession.
The Honourable Member is quite far back in the corner and I can still hear him. So there's something wrong with that equation. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition from the top, please.
In the G20 is not only an embarrassment for the Liberal Prime Minister, who's been wrong on every economic issue of the last decade, but it is also a serious human cost to Canadians. Yesterday, at the Calgary airport, I met an electrician who told me that despite working nonstop, he's had to move back in with his mother because he cannot afford the cost of Liberal inflation and now the Liberal recession. We know that Liberal insiders are getting rich off tax savings, handouts, and consulting contracts. But why is it that it's always the hardworking people like this electrician that have to pay the bill?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, yes. Yesterday, the Leader of the Opposition, I was here with members of this House at the installation ceremony for the Governor-General.
Common project, and the Premier of Alberta says the current Prime Minister has worked very constructively with our government to craft the Alberta MOU. Already attracted tens of billions of dollars in investment for new pipelines, natural gas, data centers, electricity, and much more. That's how you build this province. That's how you build this country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the question was about an electrician who has to move back in with his mother, despite the fact that he's worked hard, got his license, shows up for work every single day, and pays his tax, unlike this Prime Minister, pays his full tax bill here in Canada. He is paying the price of this Liberal recession, the only country in the entire G20 that is in a recession. Will the Prime Minister reverse the disastrous, costly, inflationary Liberal policies that put this electrician back in his mother's basement and put our country in recession, or will he just sit there and smirk?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition should talk to the national president of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, who has applauded systematically our approach to building big projects in this country, including, Mr. Speaker, the largest electrification of mobility in the history of this continent, which is a high-speed rail project which will employ more electricians than that guy could meet in 15 years.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
15 years? This thing won't even be under construction for 15 years, Mr. Speaker. And in the meantime, Liberal insiders and sleazebags will be stuffing their pockets with the tax dollars of Canadian electricians. Already, there are 13 vice presidents who have received $2.3 million of bonuses for a train that won't even be under construction for over a decade. And if it ever does, will cost $8,000 a family. Why does he always plunder the pockets of workers to help the Liberal insider elite?
I just want to comment. We should be careful of the words we use if we want to maintain the kind of decorum that Canadians expect from us. The Honourable Government House Leader.
See, Mr. Speaker, the core difference between the people on this side of the House and the Leader of the Opposition and the people who read his questions is this. We believe Canadians can do it. We believe Canadians can create a project that will add 51,000 jobs to our economy, including thousands of electricians. We believe we can add billions to our national economy with a transformative high-speed rail project, including, by the way, one that's going to be proposed in Alberta, Mr. Speaker. We believe in the future of this country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, apparently they don't believe in their Prime Minister's ability to answer questions and defend his own economic record. And we believe Canadians can do a lot of things too if this government would just get out of the way. Mais malheureusement, le bureau du super...
Unfortunately, the Bankruptcy Superintendent Office has shown that the Liberal recession, which is the only G20 recession, is striking Canadians hard. Insolvency has gone up by 8% and bankruptcy by 10%, Mr. Speaker. this Liberal government's policies are forcing Canadians to go into bankruptcy? Will they reverse these costly and deficient-making policies that have led to this situation? The Honourable Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, I know it's Tuesday and the Leader of the Opposition is looking for good news. Well, I've got some great news for him, actually. Indeed, like the Prime Minister announced, we have created more than 80,000 jobs for Canada's economy. We have the second fastest growth in the G7. We are attracting record investments. We believe in Canadian workers. We believe in Canadian industry. We believe in a prosperous Canada, Mr. Speaker. And every day is a good day for Canadian workers.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, apparently he doesn't believe in the Prime Minister's capacity to actually answer questions. The Minister for Finance, who's been here for the past 10 years, has given us the worst growth. But he's saying that we are the second fastest growing economy. Under this Prime Minister, we are dead last. We're the only G7 country, we're the only G20 country that is going towards bankruptcy. And we've seen a reduction in the number of new businesses, a drop in 39%. When will the Prime Minister finally step aside and let the economy grow? Mr. Speaker, I will take no lessons from this Conservative leader. All his job has been the last 10 years has been to be in this House. Canadians know that on this side of the House, we are building a strong economy, a more prosperous economy, the strongest G7 economy. And recently, even the IMF said that Canada has the strongest budgetary position on this side of the House. We believe in Canadians. We believe in the destiny of Canada, Mr. Speaker, and every single day we will fight to build a more prosperous Canada for all.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Why can the Prime Minister not even defend his economic record? Perhaps it's because Equifax has also said today that the national delinquency rate of 60 days and over for companies has gone up by 11% under the leadership of this Prime Minister. Bankruptcies are at their highest in 15 years. Not only are we the only G20 country in a recession, Canadians are going bankrupt. Will he finally reverse costly Liberal policies that are leading to these bankruptcies? The Honourable Minister for Industry. You know, Mr. Speaker, when we listen to the Leader of the Opposition, the issue is that he seems to be rejoicing and rubbing his hand about all this bad news. But there is great news, Mr. Speaker. Teneriffe and Sault Ste. Marie, 200 new jobs. Kruger, Trois-Rivières, more than 300 jobs that we've protected. Cap Paper, 240 protected jobs in Northern Ontario. Siemens Canada, 400 new jobs. Global Eye, that we did with Bombardier, 3,000 new jobs, and I could go on.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The question is for this Prime Minister, and it's no wonder that he can't stand up and answer. He's been wrong on every economic issue of the last decade. Wrong on carbon taxes, wrong to say he wanted to keep half of our oil and gas in the ground, wrong to oppose pipelines, wrong to push money printing deficits, which caused inflation, and now he's wrong again. And only he, out of the G7 countries, has caused a recession. Just the other day, I met a hairstylist in the Byward Market who doesn't know how she's going to pay her rent because wages are flat and costs are rising. Will the Prime Minister stand up and explain to her why he's the only leader in the G7 to cause a recession?
The Honourable Minister for Industry.
We have great news. In April, 88,000 new jobs led by young people getting new jobs, and also women across the country. And you know what? We have other projects that I can quote that, of course, I'm convinced the Leader of the Opposition will rejoice. 300 new jobs in Itachi, of course, in Varennes, in Quebec. Or, again, Alstom. New jobs at Saint-Bruno-de-Montarville. New jobs also in Vancouver at Providence Healthcare System. 768 new jobs for that project. Or Hannon System in Vaughan. 300 new jobs. Mr. Speaker, I have dozens of like that.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, a week after 300 mayors, it is civil society that is denouncing Liberals' oil-driven drift. 122 environmental groups, including 49 from Quebec, are signing a letter today. They're here with a clear message: no to new pipelines, no to any project that threatens the climate, endangered species, relations with Indigenous peoples, and the sovereignty of governments. This is a betrayal of all people who still believe in the fight against climate change. Will the Prime Minister put a stop to his oil and gas push? The Honourable Secretary of State for Nature. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very important question that has just been asked by my colleague. I'd like to acknowledge all activists like us who are fighting for clean air and clean water. It is essential that we be an autonomous economic powerhouse, and that is exactly the reason for which we're working on several fronts. We will work to respect our climate commitments for 2050, a strategy for electricity, for metal, our action plan for nature. These are all strategies to get there. What we will do is produce greener and greener energy. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, environmental groups have reminded us that the deal with Alberta for a new pipeline is something we've seen before. It's called Trans Mountain. Citizens paid nearly $40 billion for a new dirty oil pipeline. In return, the oil sector did absolutely nothing to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, they've skyrocketed since. Canada has quite simply become an oil promoter at the expense of Quebecers. What an absolute flop. Will the Prime Minister finally understand that nobody wants to star in this film once again? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, all the Bloc Québécois can do is say no, and they can't do two things at once, walking and chewing gum at the same time. One can fight against climate change whilst protecting our economy and whilst developing our natural resources. And that's what we're doing in Canada. We're doing this responsibly, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, last week we met with manufacturers across Quebec. Everywhere we went, the picture was the same. The uncertainty surrounding the USMCA and the tariffs imposed under Section 232 are increasing the financial pressure on our businesses and holding back investments. Business owners have told us that they are putting expansion projects on hold, delaying equipment purchases and hesitating to invest in their growth. This is the reality on the ground, whilst Canada is the only G7 country in recession. Does the Prime Minister understand that it is Quebec businesses that are now paying the price for his failure to restore confidence in our economy? Honourable Minister for Industry. We are working with the Government of Quebec on that front to help these Quebec companies and companies from coast to coast to coast that have been affected by tariffs. And that is the reason for which we've announced recently $1.5 billion to support these businesses in the sectors of steel and aluminium that have been affected by the new tariffs imposed by the White House. My colleague, Natural Resources, has announced new funding for the forestry sector. We are here in a tariff war, and we're here, and we're protecting our businesses and our workers. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, what we have to understand is that they're waiting. They're waiting before investing, they're waiting before expanding their facilities, and they're waiting before taking risks. That is the government's economic record, a climate of uncertainty that is paralysing private investment at the very moment Canada is in a recession. Is the Prime Minister proud to have created a climate where entrepreneurs choose to wait or to invest elsewhere rather than in Canada? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As everyone knows, we are facing unjust and illegal tariffs from the Americans. We will always, on this side of the House, defend our companies and workers, and we will support them by investing in their capacity to innovate, in their capacity to produce, in their capacity to diversify their markets. And you'll realise, Mr. Speaker, that year on year, exports outside of the States from our country have increased by 40%, and we'll support them by building new projects. For example, the Quebec Tram project that will bring in $10.5 billion, 67 direct and indirect jobs. I can't understand that they would ever vote against. The only member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, in the final days leading up to the review of the US of CUSMA. I've met with dozens of businesses across Quebec. The conclusion is clear. In the steel sector, our companies have been completely abandoned by this Liberal government. The United States, for its part, is protecting its steel markets with 100% tariffs, or up to 100% tariffs on Asian imports. What are the Liberals doing here in Canada? Absolutely nothing. Even worse, they're letting Asian countries dump their products and flood our Canadian market. Mr. Speaker, can this Liberal government stand its ground and defend the Canadian steel industry? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Well, it's rather strange to hear Conservatives talk about SMEs while voting against the high-speed train project that will create thousands of jobs in Quebec SMEs. It's rather strange to hear them talking about steel when we are preparing an incredibly promising project for steel producers. It beggars belief to hear these Conservatives standing against a project that will help mobility for Quebec's 4 biggest cities and that will create great opportunities for our SMEs. And now they're talking about the situation with SMEs. It's rather ironic.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Well, there's nothing funny here, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals are letting Asian countries dump their steel products here. Port Garaja, a company in the Beauce region, sent emails to the Liberal government with proof that garage doors from Asia that don't meet standards and contain toxic substances that are banned in Canada are coming into the country. The Liberals are doing nothing about it. They're letting those doors in anyway. After 10 years of failure, the only thing this Liberal government's managed to do is put Canadians in debt and weaken our businesses. Mr. Speaker, can the Liberals please wake up and start helping our businesses? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, we are helping our people, and that's why Canadians and Quebecers trust us. The Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, the Minister for U.S. Relations and myself are always working to protect the steel sector. And not just protect it, but we're also doing work to prevent dumping. If my colleague wishes to raise anything with us, we are ready to work with him and with all steel producers in Canada, because obviously we need to protect our steel mills. But at the same time, what we're doing is we're offering financing to help our workers and our businesses. The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Katasmik-Témiscouata. Mr. Speaker, last week with my colleagues, I had the privilege of meeting with some of the largest companies in my region. And they all said the same thing. They're feeling the impact of U.S. tariffs, economic uncertainty, and labor issues. The most concerning part is several of them have told us that they've never been consulted by the Liberal government on the future of CUSMA, despite the direct impacts on their workers and their investments. Why do the Liberals continue to make decisions that affect our businesses without ever taking the time to listen to them? The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada, U.S. Trade and Relations. Mr. Speaker, quite the contrary. We are very engaged at every level with Canadian businesses, with representatives of Canadian workers, with our colleagues in the provinces and territories. We regularly meet on a weekly basis with them. We have consultations, roundtables with various sectors of the economy. We'll have some coming up next week. We had some this week. Last week we had more consultations. We're very engaged and we're very active because it's important for us to listen to exactly the type of people that my colleague has just identified.
Burnaby Central.
Mr. Speaker, happy Pride. Today, the Prime Minister and parliamentarians gathered on Parliament Hill to raise the Pride flag and mark the beginning of Pride season in Canada. But Pride is more than a celebration. It's a reminder that rights and freedoms of LGBTQI+ Canadians cannot be taken for granted. At a time when hate is on the rise and when some voices in the House continue to question the full inclusion of LGBTQI+ people, Canadians expect leadership that stands firmly on the side of equality, dignity, and human rights. Can the Minister of Women and Gender Equality tell this House how our government will continue to protect the safety, dignity, and full inclusion of LGBTQI+ Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for his incredible advocacy. Canada is at its best when everyone can fully participate in society, free from fear, discrimination, and hate. As we mark the beginning of Pride season, we reaffirm our commitment to ensuring we are protecting the Charter of Rights and Freedoms for all Canadians, regardless of who you are or who you love. Through Budget 2025, we've committed $54.6 million over 5 years to strengthen 2S LGBTQI+ organizations across Canada, including $7.5 million to keep Pride festivals safe. Mr. Speaker, happy Pride season.
Yes, nice.
The honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Every other G20 nation is facing the same global headwinds, yet this Prime Minister, the Liberal Prime Minister in Canada, we're the only G20 nation facing a recession. In the last few days, we've even learned more about the dire state our economy is in under his watch. The economy has shrunk in 3 of the last 4 quarters. Per capita GDP is stagnating, and our productivity has hit a 7-year low. So will the Prime Minister admit that his failed policies have caused this recession, or will he keep denying that the reality lived by millions of Canadians who are suffering under his watch?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are going to take no advice from a leader who's never worked a minute in the economy. He has no practical experience. Mr. Speaker, for those of us that actually worked in the economy, when you're faced with challenges, you have a choice. You can be like that leader and flail your hands up and offer no solutions, blame everybody else, or you can lead. You can make decisions. You can lay a strong foundation for a future strong economy. Mr. Speaker, that leader has no experience. Our Prime Minister is going to build the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians can't trust those half-truths or the honeyed words coming off of any of those Liberals' lips right now. The Parliamentary Budget Officer gives less than 1% chance that the Liberal government will meet its own fiscal anchor. Banks forecast a growth of 0.5% in 2026. So will the Prime Minister take responsibility for delivering Canada's last-place economy, or will he keep borrowing and keep spending so he can take credit for our economic collapse?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, if that leader actually worked in the economy and sat in front of a board of directors, blaming everybody, offering no solutions, he would be fired. Actually, he already was by the former riding of Carleton. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we're focused on building a strong economy. Canada just created 88,000 jobs last month. The fundamentals of our economy are strong. We are focused on building the strongest economy in the G7. That leader offers nothing but empty parking lot press conferences, rhetoric, and slogans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Ponoka Didsbury.
Mr. Speaker, under this Liberal Prime Minister, Canada is the only G20 country that's in a recession. And in the past few days, we've learned much more about how dire the state of our economy is under his watch. Here are the facts. The economy has shrunk 2 of the last 3 quarters and 3 of the last 4. 2 major banks, BMO and Scotiabank, both forecast that Canada's economy will grow less than half as much as America's. Our per capita GDP is lower than it was 3 years ago. Our economic picture after a decade of Liberal rule is getting worse by the day. Will the Prime Minister do his job and stand up and tell Canadians why he's led Canada into a recession?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
In fact, Mr. Speaker, here are the facts. 88,000 jobs last month. Unemployment is down. Foreign direct investment is up, the highest it's been in 20 years, the highest in the G7. We've dropped our fuel excise tax by 10 cents a litre. We've increased capital gains eligibility. We've cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. We're making massive investments in housing, infrastructure and defence. And now the trade surplus is up. Mr. Speaker, he's got to get his facts straight.
The Honourable Member for Ponoka Didsbury.
Well, in spite of everything just said, Canada is still in a recession, but we already know the Prime Minister can't do his job because Canada is the only country in the G20 that's in a recession. And after a decade of Liberal rule, businesses aren't investing. Capital investment has fallen for the 5th quarter in a row. The government's new parliamentary budget officer has just reported that there is only a 1% chance that the government will meet its fiscal anchor. The Prime Minister claims he is a crisis manager and a master economist. If he truly is, could he stand in this House and tell Canadians why he's led Canada into a recession?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Here's where we've led Canadians on the defence side alone. Joint support ships, 3,500 jobs. Arctic and offshore patrol ships, 2,300 jobs. Fixed-wing search and rescue, 1,800 jobs. Remotely piloted aircraft system, 700 jobs. River-class destroyers, 5,250 jobs. Logistics vehicle modernization, 1,900 jobs. Armored combat support vehicle, 1,650 jobs. Mr. Speaker, tens of thousands of jobs in the defence sector alone. Get on board, stop running the country down, help us build it.
Again, through the chair, the Honourable Member for Saskatoon South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under this Liberal Prime Minister, Canada is the only G20 country in recession. The economy has shrunk 3 of the last 4 quarters. The Liberals are already borrowing over their projected $65 billion. Parliamentary Budget Officer projects borrowing now to climb to $72 billion. Will the Prime Minister tell Canadians if they are in a recession, or are they only technically doing worse after a decade of Liberal rule?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development, through the chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. A decade of 14 Saskatchewan Conservatives doing absolutely nothing to further Saskatchewan's interests, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we're building an economy. We are proud of the entrepreneurs that created 88,000 new jobs, Mr. Speaker. We are grateful for the investors. We are pleased to see the producers. Add to that strength, Saskatchewan canola, Canada's uranium, potash, oil and gas. Mr. Speaker, we're not sitting on our hands.
The Honourable Member for Mission, Matsqui, Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House of Commons, we believe in the incredible potential of Canadian youth. Yet the Bank of Canada says the surge in temporary foreign workers is driving down wages and making it harder for young Canadians to find jobs. The youth unemployment rate sits at over 14%. While Conservatives would prioritize jobs for Canadian youth, these Liberals are still flooding the labour market with temporary foreign workers when young Canadians can't find work. Why?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague from the other side for the question, specifically about youth job and youth employment. Youth employment rose by 22,000 jobs in May. Youth unemployment fell by 0.9%, the first decline since January. That means we have more work to do, and it's why we've announced a $6 billion investment in our Team Canada Strong plan, mobilizing skilled trades for the workforce. It builds on youth-focused employment programs like the Canada Summer Jobs. Mr. Speaker, youth in British Columbia see the opportunities ahead.
The Honourable Member for Mission, Matsqui, Abbotsford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, young Canadians do appreciate the Canada Summer Jobs, but it doesn't omit the fact that this government let in over 170,000 foreign workers in the last 4 quarters. These programs were meant to be temporary, but under this government, they have become permanent and unchecked. The Globe and Mail calls it, and I quote, an enduring problem created by Ottawa's over-reliance on foreign workers. Why has this government let the temporary foreign worker program spiral out of control, and when will it finally rein it in?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Speaker, and I think there is a balance to be struck, that balance we are striking between the need, the labour needs, and the temporary foreign workers program.
But I'll simply invite my colleague to repeat his question in French, because what I hear from his Quebec colleagues is that we need more temporary foreign workers. And, you know, Mr. Speaker, that's what we're hearing in rural areas and in Quebec to meet our labour force needs.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
I would like that minister to tell Ethan Miranda, a young unemployed tech worker, who poured his heart out to the Immigration Committee because he put out 500 resumes, he's highly educated and didn't get a single call back. I would like the minister to tell him that we need more temporary foreign workers. Conservatives would abolish the temporary foreign worker program and replace it with a targeted program for genuinely hard-to-fill agricultural jobs and match unemployed Canadians to regions with severe labour shortages. Why won't the Liberals follow suit?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I thought what my honourable colleague was pointing out was the utter abject hypocrisy coming from that side of the House, where we receive multiple interventions, legitimate interventions, on the part of small and medium-sized businesses in rural Quebec who seek to have more temporary foreign workers. And the words of that member and another colleague from British Columbia who try and demagogue this issue and blame situations on temporary foreign workers. These guys are going to have to come to some form of agreement on temporary foreign workers.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Yes, there are regions in Canada with ultra-low unemployment. However, in major urban centres across the country, unemployment is out of control. There are over 400,000 young Canadians who are out of work. So instead of flooding the labour market with more temporary foreign workers, the government should be trying to match available Canadians with those jobs. That's where the policy discussion should be, not with the interests of lobbyists. Why won't the government abolish the TFW program and match available Canadians with available jobs?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, temporary foreign workers in this country are down by over 50%. And that does not mean we've reached equilibrium. There are legitimate issues in rural and other parts of this country, including in small businesses in rural Quebec, and members from that side of the House quite accurately reflect it. Mais, Monsieur le Président.
But, Mr. Speaker, the ultimate hypocrisy here, and I thought that this was done 20 years ago, is to say one thing in English and the other in French in this House. The hypocrisy, Mr. Speaker, we're sick and tired of it.
The honourable member for Oakville West.
Mr. Speaker, with a background in public safety projects, I recognize that cyber threats pose a growing risk to Canadians, and our government is confronting this challenge head-on. Last week, Bill C-8, the Act Respecting Cybersecurity, passed third reading in the Senate and is now awaiting royal assent. This legislation will ensure critical infrastructure operators can prepare for, prevent, and respond to cyber incidents. Could the Minister of Public Safety explain what this means for the safety and security of Canadians and critical infrastructure in key sectors such as finance, telecommunications, energy, and transportation?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Let me thank my colleague from Oakville West for this very important question and her advocacy. Mr. Speaker, Canadians must have confidence in the integrity and security of the products and services they use each and every day. That's why we're taking the necessary steps to protect Canadians, our critical infrastructure, and our economy through Bill C-8. This piece of legislation will help critical infrastructure operators better prepare, prevent, and respond to cyber incidents that threaten Canadian interests. We will continue to modernize Canada's security tools while safeguarding privacy and keeping Canadians safe, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo.
Honourable member for Richmond Hill South.
This Liberal government's open borders policy has let 700 IRGC regime-linked terrorists into Canada. On May 28th, this failed Liberal immigration minister told the House that 17,800 applications have been reviewed for potential inadmissibility. But after all of these reviews, what did Canadians get? A handful of visas cancelled, some CBSA investigations underway, and only one person deported. Canadians of Iranian heritage in Richmond Hill and across the country no longer feel safe in their own communities. How can the Liberals say they're protecting Canadians when they keep letting the terrorists roam freely here at home?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let's get the facts straight. I did 4 hours of Committee of the Whole for all Canadians to hear, and it was very clear in my response. IRGC officials are inadmissible to Canada and have no place in our country. I'm not sure if the opposition wants to hear the response, because all I hear is heckling.
There are some loud voices on this side. If we could keep the voice level down. The Honourable Minister may continue.
So, Mr. Speaker, it was this government that put the ban on. The ban continues. We will continue to protect Canadians. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, the government granted a visa to a former IRGC commander who arrived at Pearson Airport on April 28th to attend the FIFA World Cup. The government also failed to deport an Iranian regime supporter who's been convicted of sanctions violations and has been here so long he's suing the government. The government has said for a year that dozens of senior Iranian officials are here, but exactly one has been deported, as was previously mentioned. When will the government treat foreign interference threats seriously and protect our Persian community?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the safety and security of all Canadians is critically important to this government. That's why we're taking decisive action to ensure the security at the border, including ensuring that those who are inadmissible to Canada are not allowed in. Mr. Speaker, if the Conservative Party wants to talk serious about crime and law enforcement, they need to get serious on Bill C-22, which is a Lawful Access Act that is before the House. Instead of stonewalling, Mr. Speaker, instead of dragging their feet on critically important legislation, they should support it today so that we can get this through the House before we rise.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Those ministers must know that if you're inadmissible, you're not allowed into the country. The Minister of Immigration admitted to this House that her government let people with ties to the IRGC into this country. She admitted that thousands of visas have been or needed to be reviewed since the beginning of this year, but she won't admit how many are actually here. So I have another question for her. Can she stand up now in her seat and finally tell this House if more than one IRGC agent has been deported from this country?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let's try this again. As we have repeatedly said, IRGC officials are inadmissible to Canada. They are not being admitted. There is a ban. That ban continues to be in place. Any senior officials who have served in the Iranian regime since June 2003 onwards are not admissible to Canada. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Argenteuil-La Petite Nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the face of unprecedented volatility, Canadians want both a long-term plan for economic growth and more immediate measures to help them cope with the rising cost of living. Our new government is delivering both. Last week, more than 12 million Canadians began receiving the enhanced Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit. This one-time payment, combined with future payments, will allow a family of four to receive up to $1,890 this year. This is just one of the ways that we're increasing affordability for Canadians. Could the Minister of Finance please update this House on other measures that we've taken to improve affordability? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his leadership and for his excellent question. Mr. Speaker, as he announced he's shed light on the good news that we got last week, Mr. Speaker. With the Prime Minister, we are building the most resilient economy in the G7, Mr. Speaker. The Canadian economy is growing, and we are aware that the most important question for Canadians right now is affordability, and we need to act when it comes to housing, groceries, and the cost of gas. 12 million Canadians last week, Mr. Speaker, got additional aid to help them deal with the cost of groceries, Mr. Speaker. All Canadians at home know that we're always going to be there for them on this side of the House.
Honourable Member for Swift Current Grasslands Kindersley.
I heard from several farmers and local media that test plots at Canada's only federal organic research station in Swift Current were plowed under and reseeded, destroying years of valuable research. The minister will probably stand up and say, oh, this is just a usual organics process, and ignore the data loss. But really, this is the Liberals' weak attempt at responding to the massive pushback pushback from farmers and industry. The Liberal Ag Minister said that shutting federal research centres was worthwhile, but organic farming in Canada is an $11 billion industry and growing. So does the minister really want his legacy to be destroying organic research in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food wants the clapping stop.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think our honourable member across the way knows exactly what took place at the research station and relevant to the organic growth. We're plowing the fields and they're working the land, Mr. Speaker, as they do every other year, and they'll continue to do that. Research is important in this country, Mr. Speaker. We've been doing it for 140 years. We have over 17 stations that will remain open, and we'll continue to grow our research in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot, Acton. Mr. Speaker, Donald Trump is imposing tariffs on countries that aren't doing enough to fight forced labour in their imports. That's a pretext, but it's true that Canada is letting products through, and we've seized almost nothing at the border. Last fall, I introduced Bill C-251, which would require importers to prove that products from certain regions were not produced using forced labor or child labor. Now that the Prime Minister says he wants to do more to fight forced labor, finally, will he ensure that my bill passes through all stages of the legislative process?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada has some of the most vigorous and rigorous forced labour laws in the world, and it has been clear that we condemn forced labour everywhere and anywhere it exists. Every good that comes into this country is subject to rigorous import controls and screening. After a decade of neglect, we are rebuilding the CBSA to ensure we have enforcement. We will continue to do that work. We will protect Canada's interests this day and tomorrow.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Division 8 of Bill C-30, with only 3 hours of debate in this place before time allocation, represents the single largest rollback of health and environmental protection and regulation of pesticides in the history of this country. I asked the government, I asked the Prime Minister, where did the pressure come from this rollback? I'm reliably informed even industry did not ask for it. Why is the government doing this to our environment and our health?
Here, here.
The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said yesterday, the priority of this government and of the Department of Health is to protect the health and safety of Canadians. And I'll say it again, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We are also managing the agricultural sector, and we're working close with them, but we will always take measures to protect the safety, the health of Canadians at the same time as we develop our economy and our food sovereignty.
I'd like to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Michael Tibollo, Associate Attorney General for the Province of Ontario. Tibollo,
That puts an end to question period.
Member for Similkameen, Okanagan Lake, West South Kelowna.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just will take a moment of time. I'm not bringing this up for any other reason other than I'm concerned about this place and one of your rulings. I've seen on a number of occasions now, you've taken the Leader of the Official Opposition and cancelled one of his questions because he did not put a question in it. Mr. Chair?
Question period. It's supposed to be questions. Who now? No, but the honourable member can take a bit more time here, but we have to go on to a vote.
And I hope you do too, and you can listen to what I have to say. If you are going to be cutting someone off because they did not put an inflection at the end of a question or they did not deliver a question properly, if you do that to the Leader of the Official Opposition, it could happen to any of us in this place on the opposition side. So what my question to you, Mr. Speaker, is that when the Prime Minister and previous speakers have not chosen to regulate the quality of answers from the Prime Minister and the government, why?
The honourable member should know that the rules do not allow the Speaker to require an answer, but that questions can sometimes be out of order. It being 3:14, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion to extend the sitting hours of the House in the name of Mr. McKinnon Gatineau. Call in the members.
Thank you.